Give your attention to Council Member Hiller for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. As Pastor Sue Ann Seal from Potwin Presbyterian comes up, I wanted to introduce her. She's pastor of Potwin Presbyterian Church at 5th and Washburn. It's one of our oldest churches in Topeka and has, in my opinion anyway, the most beautiful stained glass windows in town. In addition to the faith community that is strong and active at Potwin, they also house an NA and AA groups, and one of them is the longest standing group meeting place in town.
In the United States.
In the United States? Thank you.
Okay.
They host the Americana Music Academy and the Potwin Fiber Artisans. They host the Potwin neighborhood as well as Kenwood neighborhood events and partner with Ward Mead neighborhood as they are sort of at the cusp of those neighborhoods. And they partner with Westside Baptist Church for events, a kids closet, and a Wednesday evening meal site. And with that, Pastor Seal.
Holy Uncreated One, as we gather here this evening at this special time of the year, let us stop to consider all those among us in this community who are in need of blessing. We pray for those in our community who are in need, in pain, sick or lost. We thank you for the growth and prosperity that our community has experienced. We ask blessing upon all those who work for the good of the people of this community in whatever capacity. Emergency workers, street crews, sanitation. There are so many that strive to make this city a good and safe place to live. As we gather tonight, we ask your blessing and wisdom for those here in this place. Grant that they will continue their good works among us. We thank you for their willingness to give of their time and energy for us all. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Seal. There are no proclamations. There is a presentation, so if the interim city manager would introduce, we will proceed with our presentation for the evening.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, governing body. Good evening. Before I have our presenter come up, I want to make a couple comments on the presentation that she's about to give. She's going to be going over to Topeka's performance portal. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, I think. This is the fourth in a series of open data initiatives that we're doing in partnership with What Works Cities. There's a lot of fanfare about that earlier in the year. And so it mirrors our open data portal, our budget portal, and our project dashboard. We'll try that. There's been a lot of benefits to this, and I think you're going to be really amazed as Leah comes up to make this demonstration. It's a really impressive open data portal, and you know, it's going to do a lot of things. It's going to increase our transparency, continue to do that with our citizens, and it's going to allow them to see the measures that we're using and the measures we're using to hold ourselves accountable with. And they'll be able to see those and see where we're at in terms of our progress on those measures and what those measures are. But I think the one thing that maybe we hadn't anticipated that it's going to do is increase internal communication. So what has happened is it's forced, not that they didn't want to work together, because they do, but it's forced our departments to work together to compile this data. And there's been a lot of amazing conversations that have taken place because of this. So oftentimes we talk about unanticipated consequences. This is one of those, only in a good way. So that's enough about me talking. I'm going to ask Leah Bolig to come up. This is her very first presentation in front of council. I think she's a little nervous, so be nice to her. She's going to do a great job, and she's going to talk about our performance portal.
Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and governing body. I will begin by giving a brief presentation of the city's performance portal. First, there are two ways to navigate to the portal. The first is from the Topeka home site by scrolling down under Open Government, such as our other portals, and clicking on Performance. The other way to navigate to the site is by directly typing in performance.topeka.org into the server. First is the menu bar at the top. The home button can be used throughout the navigation of the portal to bring you back to this main page. We'll touch on performance data and the feedback option at the end of the presentation. And the Open Government drop-down allows you to navigate to the other open portals. There's a brief description here on the home page. It also points out that the portal measures that are currently included are for the initial launch. They are not all of the portal measures that the city has and use to track objectives. Below are 6 boxes. These are the 6 priorities that we are using to navigate through the system. If we want to see what each of them include, we can hover over them and they provide a brief description of what's included within that category. So if we want to click on fiscal health and sustainable growth, we see the title and we see a summary section where the bullets are the objectives for that priority. And on this priority, there are 4. If we wanted to take a deeper look into combined debt rating, we would click on the box and it would bring us to the home screen for that measure. It will show us a title and a summary sentence that includes what the measure is showing us. Also, the number current as of September 2016. If we click on Show Chart, a chart fills in down below. It shows our timeline down here below, starting in 2006, and our ending number as of September. Below the graph, there are summaries, definitions, and information regarding numbers that contribute to that overall number at the top. Below are direct links that will take you to the budget portal and the checkbook portal. By scrolling back up, if we wanted to get a better and more in-depth overview of the numbers that are included in this graph, each measure has this Explore the Data option behind it, and if we click on it, it will pull up the whole data set that this portal is operated off of. And so each measure is connected to this data set. And if we wanted to find a specific data set, we could either scroll and search for it, or we could use the search option and type in a keyword such as debt and click enter. And it would pull up all of those numbers corresponding to the year, and we could do a more in-depth research on that measure. If you click the home button, it's going to ask you to save because we've selected a different view here, and as an individual looking at this screen, you could choose to save this view so you could come back and view it each time you visit the portal. Right now we don't want to save it, so it will take us back to the home screen. We'll look at one more measure. If we hover over stewardship of physical assets, we see this contains building information on buildings, equipment, streets, infrastructure. And under this priority, there are multiple objectives and multiple sections, including measures for each of those objectives. We see on track for major street projects. If we click on that measure to take a deeper look, we'll once again see that title and the summary sentence explaining that we're measuring the number of major street projects constructed each year, and the current number as of November 2016. The number 25 is that of November, and the 22 notes that there was a target goal associated with this measure. So by the December of 2016, we wanted to complete 22 major construction projects. If we click on Show Chart, we can see the trend line from the beginning of our data set in 2013 to current, and we see the trend line is exceeding our target projection for the end of 2016. If we scroll below, there are many measures that encompass related measures underneath the prevailing measure. This one has one related measure, and it includes meetings on major street projects. You see 38 meetings and a brief sentence here describing what those 38 meetings consist of. You also see the trend line once again, and you see that we're exceeding our projected number for 2016 on those meetings we've held this year. Below, there's more descriptions and definitions for major street projects, what they entail, what can contribute to their performance, what public meetings consist of, and how to find the next public meeting listing. Helpful links such as links to the CIP storybook, tweet-alongs, and over here to the right, there's a link to the Topeka Capital Project Dashboard, which residents can navigate to review all of the current projects going on in the city. Once again, there's the Explore the Data option if you want to take a deeper dive into that full data set. Going back to the home page, if we go underneath these 6 priorities, we see 6 more boxes. These boxes are direct links. So if we wanted to see the weekly reports by the city manager's office, we can click. It will directly link us to the city webpage where we can see the most recent report that's been published. And the last thing I want to touch on is the performance data. This is a link that will take you directly to that large data set, so you don't have to navigate to the Explore the Data option under each measure. You can go straight to this. The feedback option is what we're using to ask for comments, questions. If someone would like to submit a request to see a different performance measure published, they can use this form. It gets directly submitted to us in the office, and we can route it through the necessary track. That concludes my presentation of the Open Performance Portal.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I understand your position. Tell us what your position is.
I'm the performance analyst under the budget and performance management.
Okay, interesting. We have a performance analyst.
Yes.
You work in finance.
I do.
And of course, this is very much done with IT.
Yes.
Putting it all together. And just the other is that I know this is by far the most complete performance transparency in the state of Kansas. No other city has anything quite like this. And some of you are aware, about 2 months ago, AARP recognized Topeka, and it was actually in this particular publication, they recognized 100 cities for innovative work. There are 2 mentioned in Kansas, Wichita and the city of Topeka, on the extent to which we are so, what we're doing right here, of making all of our information so available. So thank you, tremendous. And council members, questions, comments? Councilwoman Ortiz?
Thank you, good job. Can you go back to the home page? And I don't know, this is probably for IT and the interim city manager.
The homepage of the topeka.org.
Mm-hmm. Can you go to the, where the calendar is? I don't see Mark here. Kind of tried to explain this to him. I think the calendar is great, if you'll pull it up for me. I think
Down the bottom.
I think the whole website is
Okay.
great. But when I look at the calendar, Mr. Gerber, all of that runs together, and a little bit of advice to IT is to highlight the meetings. I think that would be great, to bold them or highlight them. That way, when I look at that, that will stand out to me, and that won't all run together. Am I making sense?
Councilwoman, yes, we can certainly visit with them and see if there's a way we can highlight those so they stand out a little bit better.
Other than that, I think it's great. I get on it quite a bit, not knowing what I'm doing, but I think it's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor DeLisla?
Thank you, Mayor Wolgas. I just want to give a huge shout out to Sherry Schonover because 2 years ago, this process started. 2 years ago, and it was a whole process of revamping the whole website first for us to have a website that was functional. We had one of our employees do all the coding, which I think is just crazy to consider all the work that goes into the background. And then when, in the summer, you guys started working with trying to determine which was going to be the software that we were going to use. You guys chose Socrata, if memory serves me right. And it's been great to see how little by little everything is just coming together and we just have something top-notch. So to your department, thank you so much. And of course, for the budget department that has been working with you guys, sharing that information, thank you, because you guys are just rock stars.
Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. What they said And is this just for reporting for people like us and the public, or is the staff, is this becoming the resource that the staff is using as well?
To encompass both. It's mainly meant for residents and other municipalities to use, and internally, like Mr. Gerber stated, it has caused a lot of cohesion between the departments and our ability to track and measure things that affect the city as a whole throughout all the departments.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. Sometimes people duplicate, they've still got their back databases that they were using, and this is just in front, but it looks so good. I hope that's where we're moving as well.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Other, Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. I love this. I'm a huge data guy. I think this is fantastic. Does this give us a unique ability to identify problems with projects and promises we made to the public much earlier than we had before? And do you have proactive alerts set up for that, or is that something in the future?
I would say it is an ongoing process, but it has already helped in the ability to learn better tracking mechanisms.
Excellent.
And things of that nature, better reporting methods.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have to all start using it and become familiar with it. That's the big part. Force ourselves to do that. No other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. We'll then proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Wolgast.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Clear. Here. Ortiz. Here. Emerson.
Here.
De La Isla. Here. Jensen.
Present.
Schwartz. Here. Cohen.
Here.
And Harmon.
Councilman Harmon said he would be late, would be arriving during the meeting. There are no additions or deletions to the agenda. We do have 2 executive sessions that will fall at the conclusion of the meeting. And we have something else, as you now see on the screen. City Manager, Mr. Gerber, would you like to give us more of the public, because some of us are more aware of it, of what they're seeing?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, what we're seeing tonight is the result of about 11 months of work trying to get a new voting system into place. As we went to upgrade the old system, it became fairly apparent that it was going to be difficult. Parts, stop me if you've heard this before, but parts on older things, whether they're vehicles or whatever, tend to be more difficult to get, and we ran into that with this particular board. Not to mention, Brenda was telling me just before the meeting that it would have cost probably double to upgrade this as opposed to the money we put into this new system. I know one of you commented that you like to pound on the old one, and I think you can still pound away on this one, I think. But it'll measure, as noted on here. As you can see, it'll measure your votes electronically, and then what we see on this screen will be what they see on the screen at home. So, again, it should be more transparent. It should show folks what's going on, and I think it's just bringing us into the modern age.
And I think, and also during the meeting, it'll be stating what agenda item we're on, so that when some of us forget or remember, we can click up there and see. And as we vote, I'm sure we'll work through this tonight. There might be a few little glitches. We might have to re-vote once or twice, but we'll get it underway. Thank you. Thank you for your work on it. Councilman Ortiz.
Mr. Mayor, I think a picture should be up there of Richard. That way
Right.
they won't get...
With a cross, an X across here.
Yeah,
With the X
that way they
across.
won't get Mr. Henderson.
Thank you. Okay, let's continue. We have the consent agenda, if the clerk would read.
A is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Keith Finney to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending January 1, 2019. B is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Toby Taggart to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending January 1, 2019. C is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Matthew Werner to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending January 1, 2019. D is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Jeff Carson to the Topeka Landmarks Commission for a term ending January 1, 2020. E is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Sean Smith to the City of Topeka Board of Electrical Appeals for a term ending January 1, 2019. F is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Jim Grunwald to the City of Topeka Board of Electrical Appeals for a term ending January 1, 2019. G is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Dave Krug to the City of Topeka Board of Electrical Appeals for a term ending January 1, 2019. H is denial of a tort claim appeal submitted by Marlisa Roney in the amount of $453.70 for alleged damages to her vehicle from a pothole. I is denial of a tort claim by insurance company in the amount of $37,576.33 for reimbursement to Brandon and Erica Asbell for property damage incurred as a result of a water main break near 3201 Southwest McVicker Avenue. J is denial of a tort claim submitted by AT&T seeking reimbursement in the amount of $14,154.12 for repair of its fiber optic line, which city crews severed while repairing a water main near 4343 Southwest 17th Street on January 25, 2016. K are minutes of the regular meeting of November 15, 2016. There's a list of cereal malt beverage, dance hall license, and open after midnight license applications, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay, that is the consent agenda and your pleasure. Deputy Mayor De La Isla moves and Councilman Jensen seconds. All in favor vote yes. Those opposed vote no. And I no longer have to state how I vote.
Somebody didn't vote?
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
Now, we still have, it's appropriate to announce the vote, that we have 9 having voted yes, the consent
We
agenda.
have 10 yes,
I'm
or
sorry.
9 yes, I'm sorry.
9 having voted yes, the consent agenda is approved as read. I want to introduce Dave Krug, if you would stand. Dave is a reappointment to the Board of Electrical Appeals. Thank you. We appreciate your service a great deal. Proceed with the action items. First, the public hearing.
A is a public hearing for the purpose of hearing and answering objections of taxpayers relating to the proposed amendments to the 2016 operating budget.
Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, tonight, as discussed a couple of weeks ago, we have a public hearing on amendments to the 2016 budget. Those amendments total about $5.4 million. They are coming from 6 funds, and the bulk of that, the nearly $5 million of that is coming from our half-cent sales tax, both the citywide and the countywide funds. I know there's some discussion with one of you this afternoon, and this really is akin to us having the money but needing the permission to spend it. So the money is available in all of these funds. It just needs action from the governing body to be able to spend it. So with that, I'd recommend.
And as required by state law, we have to have a public hearing whenever we make any changes, amendments, or adaptations to the budget. So at this point, we will state the public hearing is now open for anyone who wishes to speak on the 2016 budget amendments. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we declare the public hearing closed. This will be for action at next week. It will be on the agenda next week then for action to be taken by the council. We then proceed with item B.
B is setting a public hearing date of January 3, 2017 to consider establishing a benefit improvement district for the Horseshoe Bend subdivision number 4 located near Southeast 43rd Street and Southeast Grand Oaks Avenue.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. As noted, both of this item and the next one for Misty Harbor are actions to set a public hearing date for January. These particular development projects have been discussed by the council. You received a presentation from Public Works Director Jason Peak at your last meeting, and he outlined what these projects consisted of. So at this point, we're just asking that because they'd like to take advantage of establishing a benefit district, there needs to be a public hearing, so we're asking that you set that date.
So it would be appropriate to have a motion approving setting a public hearing. Councilman Jensen so moves. Councilman Cohen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no.
Okay, we have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the public hearing date is set. We go to item C.
C is setting a public hearing date of January 3, 2017 to consider establishing a benefit improvement district for Misty Harbor Estates Number 5 located near Southwest 43rd Street and Southwest Lakeside Drive.
Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would echo the comments I made on the previous item. We're just asking for establishment of a public hearing date of January 3rd, 2017.
Such a motion would be in order. Deputy Mayor DeLisa moves and Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the public hearing date is set. Go to item D, a resolution.
D is a resolution introduced by interim city manager Doug Gerber expressing support for housing tax credits for Pioneer Group Incorporated for the Madison Street Apartments Development Project.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you again. What you have in this document is a resolution which supports Pioneer Group's application to the state for housing tax credits. And this particular application is for the Santa Fe Apartments. They're on the corner of 6th and Madison. What they intend to do is refurbish some of those apartments and then add some additional apartments in part of the vacant old hospital wing. So they'll refurbish some. They'll add, I think, an additional 28 units to increase the total to 119 total units. As the governing body knows, that any time applications like this go forward, they do require a resolution of support from the local governing body. I might mention that Rick Creedy from Pioneer Group is here, and I'm sure he'd be glad to
Yeah, and he
answer
has
very
signed up
specific
for
questions.
public comment. So Rick, if you could come forward at this time and address the council, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Actually, I know you've got a busy schedule. I just put my name on in case there were questions that somebody wanted to ask. So I think you've got a lot of information there already.
Are there questions? Anything, Councilman Ortiz?
Thank you. How you doing, Rick?
Doing well.
Good. So we own the building that we're in, right? And you
Yes.
guys would own the old Santa Fe part, right?
Correct.
And will there still be 2 entries, or is there just the one off of Madison?
There will be more than that even. But yes, the main entrance off of Madison on the west end of that will continue to be there. Areas at the south end that used to be the emergency room
Right.
were not refinished 15 years ago when the previous developer fixed it up. And we're going to put some more apartments in there and open that door and hallway up so people can come directly off the parking lot into the building instead of having to walk a half a block as they do now. Also, the east wing that's across the street from the newspaper was unfinished before. They literally just shut the door and walked away. The neat thing about that is the old hospital rooms still look like old hospital rooms, still have the built-in cabinets that you're used to seeing and things. And those of us that love fixing up historic buildings found ways to be able to utilize some of that, and we'll fix those into some 2-bedroom apartments over there and put some parking in that area, a few parking spaces in that area in the middle so people can actually come in one of those back doors on the south side in there as well.
Okay, yeah, that's still creepy in there.
I felt the same.
I'm glad to hear that because I've been talking to the interim city manager about parking. So, because most of our residents are elderly, am I correct? Will they be
And
senior
will continue
citizens?
to be, yes. When it was developed 15 years ago, it was for people aged 55 and better. We'll continue to do that, but also add others with handicaps. Currently, they've got 1 elevator in there to serve the 91 apartments that they have. We're going to increase that at least to 2 and probably have 3 elevators, just making it a little easier for people to get around.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Nothing for you, but to my colleagues, we really need to look at parking, downtown parking. We need to look at the senior citizens that park there that will get a ticket because there's not a lot of parking there. That's all city if you really think about it. And I think this is great. I've seen the work that you've done. I've talked to Doug, and I will be looking for answers to how we can accommodate these people that are on fixed incomes where parking is concerned, so that they're not continuously getting those parking tickets that can start out at $8 and go up to, and then your cars. So we really need to look at that. We're asking our seniors to come downtown. I had this conversation on the parade night for Christmas parade, and I sat there talking to some residents that are at 9th and Kansas Avenue with the same parking issues. They were told to get off the street so the parade can come through there, and we need to make that more clear. But also I talked to a gentleman that had several tickets because he's 80. He can't go park in a garage. And we need to really look at that. We're asking people to come and move downtown. And so I will be working with the city, interim city manager, and I will be pushing something forward to try to help them, so that, because they are on fixed incomes, and we do want them to come downtown, and we do want them to be a part of that. But we've got to do better than what we're doing.
Very good.
Thank you,
Very good
Mr. Mayor.
comments. Are there other questions for Mr. Grady? Mr. Jensen?
Doug, there's not a whole lot of people that park on Madison. Is there a particular reason why we still have meters there? Surely the cost to maintain those outweighs the benefit of having them. Has that ever been looked at?
Councilmember, I'm not sure if that's ever been looked at. One of the things, as I think the body knows, that's been in the works for a while, and we're finally giving the green light to, is moving ahead with a parking study. I'd like to say that last summer, myself, Bill Fiander, and Jason Peak spent significant time on this issue. We're three reasonably smart people, and we had trouble coming to good conclusions on this. And so we really feel like we want to bring in some expertise on this.
So some of these issues may basically get resolved as part of that. Excellent.
I certainly hope so.
Well, and I appreciate Councilwoman Ortiz bringing it up, because that is one thing. I drive down Madison all the time, and there's parking meters there.
Yeah.
There's hardly anybody that's ever parked in there, so I do think it's a good idea to revisit that, especially given this project going in there, so.
Yes.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, are there other questions, comments on the issue? Councilman Hiller?
Well, I want to support it, certainly. I do think that Councilwoman Ortiz's question is good. There has never been, the parking lot that is assigned to the Santa Fe Towers has never been full, but people have wanted to park at the door. And so opening up that south door should help as well in terms of people being able to park close to the door. I also, just in terms of this proposal in general, certainly the Pioneer Group has a wonderful reputation for doing a great job with any building, but particularly historic buildings. And so I have every confidence that they'll be a great developer for this. Further, they have, once this was getting kind of close to coming here, Mr. Creedy has reported to me that this is in my district, and so he's kind of kept in touch with me as this was germinating. But they have met with the residents that are there. The numbers are down right now. They have already talked to them about being able to move them into another apartment while theirs is being rehabbed so that they can move back in, or staying in an alternate one, whatever their choice is. They've got that mapped out. They have met with the residents. I haven't had a single call of concern, which is always a good sign in my book. And with that, I would move to support the project.
All right, it's been moved by Councilwoman Hiller, seconded by Councilwoman Ortiz to approve the resolution expressing our support. All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no.
I voted, it's not working now. See?
You didn't hit it hard enough, girl.
You have to bang it.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the resolution is approved, and we're proud to be supportive. Thank you for coming. We go to item E, an ordinance.
E is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager Doug Gerber, providing for renewal of a non-exclusive franchise to American Medical Response to operate an ambulance service within the city of Topeka, which replaces the franchise ordinance codified at City Code Appendix B, Article 6, that will expire December 31, 2016.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. As you know, I like to boil things down to a very simple concept, or I try to at least, and approval of this item will allow AMR to continue operating ambulance service for the citizens of Topeka for another year, so we would ask for approval. I would also note that John and Scott are both here from AMR if you have specific questions for them. Maybe they
Are
could
there,
raise their hand.
are there questions? This is as we do each year, renew this, and there's no change in the contract.
No change, correct.
No change in the past. Councilman Ortiz moves, Councilman Clare seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the ordinance is approved. We go to item F, resolution.
F is a resolution introduced by interim city manager Doug Gerber, setting forth the City of Topeka policy for capital improvement planning and rescinding resolution number 7553.
Thank you, gentlemen, for attending. Sorry there were no questions for you. Okay, Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, at your last meeting, I think we had a good discussion about the capital improvement policy, including several questions and comments from the governing body at that meeting. And since then, those questions and comments are incorporated into this new draft policy for your consideration. In particular, I'd point you to the page in your packet that lists out comments from the governing body from November of 2016, and then staff responses to those. I'd like to point out, I just think staff did a really nice job summarizing those comments, as well as talking about what our responses to those comments were. And I think in most cases, those comments were incorporated into this document. In general, I'd highlight maybe 2 changes that are different from this policy as opposed to the 2004 policy that we're currently operating under. The first is we want to move to a 10-year CIP. As you know, right now we have a 5-year CIP. We explained last time that 10 years is a best practice that we want to move towards, and really helps us, particularly on the utility side, with our bond rating. And frankly, we need all the help we can get right now with our utility bond ratings to keep those at the level we want them. And then finally, it moves us from a $9 million per year cap to a $27 million cap over 3 years. So it's a running total of $27 million over those 3 years. That gives staff and this body flexibility to operate and get projects through in that 3-year period. So with that, I'd stand for questions.
Are there any questions on the capital improvement plan? And I like the fact that what you put in here about the council questions, council member questions and responses to those. Councilman Clare.
I apologize. I left early last time because I was ill. Can you explain, I was reading, we're going from a 5 to a 10, 7 years is for planning. Can you explain that? And what that has to do with our bonds, and explain bonds really low level for me?
Councilwoman, I'll try, and if I fail, then maybe the real expert can take over. But right now, we have a 5-year CIP plan. The first 3 years of that are what are called the CIB, the capital improvement budget, and so those are actually budgeted. And then the 2 out years are planned projects. What we want to do is move that from 5 years to 10 years, which essentially we have in place now. It's just not formalized. If you think back to the CIP process last year, or if you look at your CIP document, in the very back of that booklet is a list of unfunded projects. What will happen is essentially those projects will move on to our planning list. The projects we all want to do, so they're part of the plan, they're just not funded. what bond rating agencies, so when we go to issue debt, we get rated by bond rating agencies. And what they tell us, particularly on the utility side, is they'd like to see us move towards a longer-term plan. Part of what they evaluate cities on is how well you plan for future needs, for future growth, et cetera. And this is one way that we're able to, we get points in every category, and this is one way we're able to increase our points in that particular category.
All right, other questions, Mr. Gerber? Seeing none, pleasure, Councilwoman Miller.
Mayor, thank you. I really appreciate the whole process, the comments, and what is here right now. I would note in a very minor clerical sense that the renumbering didn't quite get finished on pages 4 and 5. So if there can be an assumption that that will change, I would move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Deputy Mayor DeLisla seconds. And is that debatable? That's doable. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no.
Jensen. Oh, we need to clear. Yeah. Start over here. Okay, I cleared the board if you guys want to vote again.
Okay.
Okay, we have 8 yes, Ms. Ortiz voting no.
8 having voted yes, the resolution is approved. We go to item G, approval of alcohol grants.
G is approval of funding recommendations by the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Advisory Council in the amount of $620,000 for the 2017 Special Alcohol Fund.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think this will be the last item tonight where I do significant talking, so we can put that to rest. You heard a nice presentation at your last meeting on this subject, outlining the process that was used and where the funds are anticipated going towards. And so those are listed in your project, in your council book tonight. The city gets around $1.8 million every year from alcohol taxes. By statute, we're required to send a third of those, or use a third of those funds for alcohol and drug programs. And so that's the number you're voting on tonight, approximately $620,000. And with that, I'd stand for questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Gerber on this issue? I think we discussed it the last session. And your pleasure. Councilwoman Clear moves to approve. Councilman Cullen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the special alcohol grant funding is approved. And I know the people involved are here. They'll be glad to hear this. Their recommendations are approved. I'll go to item H, an ordinance.
H is an ordinance introduced by Interim City Manager Doug Gerber concerning merchant private police license regulations, amending City of Topeka Code Sections 590.010, 591.10, 591.20, 130, 140, and 170, and repealing original sections and repealing Section 590.050 in its entirety.
This issue was considered earlier this year by the council, and it was referred to the Public Health and Safety Committee for their work on it. And so I asked the chair of the committee, Councilman Ortiz, for a report from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was deferred to the Public Health and Safety Committee on June the 14th, and then after Elaine went on vacation and came back, and then Mr. Cohen went on vacation and came back, and then Elaine went on her sick leave and came back. We finally got together. And yeah, but we got it done. We got it done. Anyway, and we came up with some changes, and Luther is going to come up and explain those changes. I like to put him on the spotlight. He does well. Hi, Luther.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Members of the council, Mr. Mayor, hope you can hear me. I never talk loud enough. The changes that this is a set of ordinances that deal with the licensing of merchant guards, security guards. The changes that are being proposed, there's a number of changes. The first one is revising the definition of conviction, what we're going to look at. We've looked at a lot of other cities in Kansas, and what we've kind of found out is our licensing scheme is a little unique. What we've proposed in this revision is that we no longer count expunged convictions or diversions, juvenile adjudications, things like that, and that a conviction really is what it means is a conviction, that those are the things that we would consider for licensing. The second change that's being proposed is that we will remove any references to firearms, regulations, trainings, that kind of thing, due to changes in state law in recent years. Then there's also some changes that are made in the actual qualifications that we look at. The way it is now, we have a time limit of 20 years on a felony and 10 years for 2 Class A or B misdemeanors. And looking at other cities, the proposal that we've brought forward to the council kind of puts us more in line with that. That for a felony conviction, we would remove the 20-year timeline. It would basically be lifetime. If you've ever been convicted of a felony, we would ask about that. The misdemeanors, it would still be 10 years. But instead of just saying a Class A or a B misdemeanor, 2 of them, we would change that to looking at something that's probably more related to being a security guard. We'd look at convictions that deal with crimes of violence, controlled substances, crimes involving dishonesty, things like that. That way people would not be denied a license because they happen to have been convicted several years ago of something that didn't fit into one of those categories. That's kind of a summary of the changes, so if you have any questions.
And it was, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, it was voted 3-0 to approve of those changes by the committee. And I know that with that, I'll make a motion to approve, but I know there was a lot of questions out
Okay.
there.
We have a motion to approve the merchant guard licensing ordinance. Councilman Clear seconds. Now, are there other questions or discussion? Councilman Hiller.
Mayor, thank you. We had some communication back and forth about one of the provisions, that being that there'd been kind of a clean sweep of moving the various references to domestic violence into that definition of conviction and violent crime. But we realized today that what is now lines 196 through 208 that strikes the domestic violence stalking and protection from abuse probably shouldn't have come out. And if we could have Luther address that, I'm prepared to recommend that it come back in, it sounds like.
Sure. That was legal's recommendation, is that we put those lines back in. Those were originally stricken. It was an error. We were looking at the crime of violence and taking out redundant language then, dealing with domestic violence convictions and stuff like that. What we realized is that language didn't apply to convictions. We were talking about restraining orders. So in order to adequately cover not just convictions, but also being the subject of a restraining order, anything that could get you disqualified from being able to possess a firearm, basically, we need to reinsert that language back in there so we've got restraining orders covered.
So with that, I would like to move that we reinstate the language that is currently stricken out in lines 196 through 208.
Okay. Is there a second? Deputy Mayor DeLisa seconds. So we are now discussing this, the amendment. Are there any questions? Is there any? So we know we're really putting something back in that was there, that was taken out, and we're adding it again. Is there other discussion? Seeing none, we're voting on this amendment. Please vote yes or no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the amendment is approved, so that language is back in. We have then the motion before us as amended. Is there any discussion on it as amended? Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. One of the things that came out in the discussion at the meeting, excuse me, was the fact that several cities have gotten out of the business of doing merchant licensing, the background checks and all of that. And I would encourage the city to look at this and whether or not we really do need to be in this business. I don't know how many cities it was, Luther, but there were like 4 or 5 that were out of the licensing, the merchant guard licensing. And that, what it does is it makes us do the background checks. And in the cities that don't have it, the businesses have to do their own background checks, right?
Yeah, I think there was, when we looked at it, there was some cities over around the Kansas City area that don't license this at all. There's nothing that requires us to do it. It's something that's traditionally been done by cities, but there has been some cities that have decided not to do it at all.
And maybe changing of the times. It's a different issue now that we don't do it. Councilman Hiller.
Thank you. Along those lines, I had a comment at a neighborhood meeting just this weekend about that same subject, and that person was telling me that there had been an effort, I think last year, at the state legislature to get the state to take that over. And he was recommending that if we were interested as a city, we might want to add that to our legislative agenda as well, to look into, the reason being that often the companies anymore have locations in more than one city and might move workers from one city to the other as well. And so it might make more sense, certainly, to have those background checks done, but to have it be uniform amongst the different cities and other localities in Kansas, and also portable. So I would piggyback that input that I got just this weekend.
Okay.
I don't know if the legislative agenda is done yet, but anyway.
So this is something that may come back. All right, we have a motion as amended before us. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor vote yes or vote no. This is a home rule item, so the mayor has no vote.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voted yes, the ordinance is approved. And again, thank you, everyone who worked hard on this. Go to item I, an ordinance.
I is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager Doug Gerber, repealing in their entireties Topeka Municipal Code Section 1050-010, 1050-050 through 150, and 1205-110, as well as creating Chapter 12.70, all concerning special events, parades, and block parties.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. We've had a number of good discussions about these next 2 items, and I'm going to ask City Attorney Lisa Robertson to continue to lead that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Gerber. As he said, we have had some good discussions on this. We've had a couple during council meetings. We've tried to implement some of the suggestions that we've heard from all of you. After the November 15th meeting, we whittled that down to about 4 different amendments. If you have any questions about those, I'd be happy to answer. There was one staff-initiated change that had to do with the time within which a street could be blocked. If it's the desire of the governing body that we take that language out, I think it's found in lines 406 to 412 on page 18. The Special Events Committee is absolutely okay with doing that and just seeing how things go for the first year that this is in place. We just think it's most important to get something on the books so we can provide better guidance to individuals who are holding special events. So if anyone has any questions,
Are there questions on it as proposed without going to the amendment possibility? Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa, can you read off the changes for the people at home and myself? I left early because Sandra made me sick that night, so I had to get up.
the changes that we made the last meeting, sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. These are pretty minor. The first of the 4 changes actually changed the deadline for block parties from 10 business days before the event to 20 business days before the event. And the reason why that was done is so that the applicant knows if they're going to receive the permit before then they're required to have to go out and provide notice to individuals. We also made, the second change would be clarifying that the time period for notifying affected residents or businesses of a street closure is 10 business days. And we also, for the third change, added a requirement that the special event sponsor notify any business improvement district established by Kansas statute of any requested street closure, in addition to notifying the residents and or businesses that may be affected. And that was one of the asks of Vince Fry, who was here to speak at the last council meeting. And then the other one that I just spoke to was the fourth, and that had to do with prohibiting the closure of any streets prior to 5:30 on a business day. That was a staff initiated, and it hadn't really been discussed with council, so we are pretty okay with just taking those lines back out, seeing how it goes for the next year, and if we need to address it at that point in time, we will.
Yes, Councilman Ortiz.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the Christmas parade on Kansas Avenue. There were some residents that didn't get notified that their car was blocked in, and the police made a move. We've got to do a better job at communicating to those residents. If these residents live there, one of them was a former councilwoman, Lisa Stubbs. Her car got blocked in for the lighting of the tree when they brought the tree in. And you know, they were telling everybody, clear your car off of Kansas Avenue. We have to be mindful these residents live there. If I park my car and I go upstairs and I go to bed and we're not communicating, we've just got to do a better job. And then you have the police coming along and they're trying to follow direction and clear the facilities. And I know there was people that were trying to park and then leave and then come back, so they had a good, we just need to make that clear, but we also need to communicate with our residents down there who want to live down there, and we want them down there because they're seeing the crime, they're watching our city, you know. So will this address that?
Councilmember Ortiz, that's one of the driving forces behind trying to implement something like this, to be honest. So what we've done is addressed it in this policy, but we've also tried to insert language in the application forms themselves to reiterate, hey, look back at this provision that's contained in the ordinance and make sure that you provide the notice to those folks. And hopefully, what the remedy would be, I guess, if they have not notified folks appropriately, is the next time that they want to pull a permit for a special event, there may be some additional questions asked and they may not get a permit. It just depends on how good a job they do.
And you know, Lisa, she lives right there by West Star, but I talked to another person at Kansas Towers, which is at 9th and Kansas, that some of those residents do park on Kansas Avenue. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I think it's good, and I think so much of this we're going to have to work through. I mean, we're going to, well, it'll be a process.
And I agree, Mr. Mayor, but when you have how many elderly people that live in Kansas Towers, and all we have to do is notify that manager, that it's a simple process.
Yeah.
We're just failing.
We'll work at it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lisa, isn't part of the goal behind this to have a better page on our website with a calendar of closures so that it's easier for folks to access
Absolutely.
a list? I would expect building managers to be more familiar with this than necessarily residents, but as a building owner on Kansas Avenue, I'm particularly interested in having a list of dates that I know that I can let tenants know that the street will be blocked for various events. Having said that, I am particularly thrilled with the amount of teamwork that's gone into this, public feedback. I think really the community at large has come together to try and sort this out in the best way they can, and I think that's admirable and something that should be hopefully endeavored on future problems we try to solve, bring everybody together and see if we can work at it, because that's ultimately what's going to make this and other things we attempt successful, is everyone comes together and agrees that there is no perfect solution, but we've made a great stab at it, and I'm particularly excited to support this. Thank
You
you.
have a location there. Maybe you would like to move approval of the ordinance.
I would be happy to. So moved.
Get Debbie Verdi Leesla seconds. So we have a motion before us, and then Councilman Hiller wishes to make an amendment.
I will propose the amendment to delete the proposed change from lines 406 to 412. And that is something that hadn't come up. It would be problematic for events that have occurred in the past downtown and that are already on deck. And it also, the fine work that Councilman Jensen refers to should cover any issues here, the issues of notice to businesses and residents. If something is planned with that process that we'll work on, should pretty well take care of those items. It's going to be hard to schedule something during the day on a business day unless you've kept it. For instance, the Colmery Plaza event where we put a tent in the middle of Kansas Avenue just for the morning, that was agreeable, it worked fine. When Cat Fed introduced the new bikes, they closed off 7th Street between Kansas and Quincy and served free lunch to everybody, and people could congregate there just for a long lunch hour. Those were very successful. But they won't happen often, and so I would again move to delete that proposed, only the red language change from lines 406 to 412.
Okay, it has been moved. Councilman Ortiz seconds.
No, I have a
I'm sorry.
question. Well, I'll second it for the sake of discussion.
Okay, yeah, we're going to have to get a second. Okay, yes, now we're on discussion of the proposed amendment. Yes.
Lisa, what does that do?
Well, Councilmember Ortiz, right now, there is no language that guides when the street can be closed. This came up during one of our neighborhood discussions. I think it was with the no-tow business owners. There were 1 or 2 businesses, as I recall, that had problems because the streets were being closed ahead of 5:30. Actually, it's before 5 o'clock. So what their argument was is they're still in business or conducting business during the weekday, and they would prefer that the streets not be blocked during normal business hours. So they did bring that up, and I was the one who kind of overlooked that, and Clint Pelton brought that to my attention, and so that's why I initiated the change. But again, we're fine with seeing how it goes for the next year, and if it's a problem.
So the change would mean that they couldn't close it off before 5:30?
The change, yes, they could not block a street on a weekday, business day, that's not a holiday, prior to 5:30.
And that's Karen's amendment?
No.
No, that's the staff-initiated amendment. Karen's amendment would be that there's no restriction to
There's
that
no
effect.
restriction, okay. Thank you.
Okay, that helps. Other discussion on the amendment?
Just to clarify also, the language that the staff and the input really worked on was a requirement to not block businesses and to make arrangements for alternate parking or access if for some reason an event was to get in front of a business. And so again, we need to test that out and make sure it works, but it should work whenever something is planned.
Okay, all right. Other discussion, questions on the amendment? Seeing none, please vote. And this is another home rule that the mayor has veto power over, therefore does not vote.
We have 7 yes, Miss Claire voting no,
Seven having voted yes.
and Mr. Harmon abstaining.
Okay, 7 having voted yes, the ordinance is approved. We go to, I'm sorry, thank you. The amendment has been approved. We are now have before us the motion on the ordinance as approved, as amended. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, please vote. Yes if you approve, and no if you disapprove. And again, the mayor has no vote.
We have 8 yes, Mr. Harmon abstaining.
8 having voted yes, the ordinance as approved is passed. We now go to item J, ordinance on vendor licenses. The clerk would read.
J is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager Doug Gerber, revising Chapter 5.115 of the Topeka Municipal Code concerning peddlers, solicitors, and interim merchants, amending City of Topeka Code Sections 5.115.010 through 5.115.160, and repealing original sections and creating Sections 5.115.170 through 220.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, again, I would ask City Attorney Lisa Robertson to lead this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Gerber. This will be a short one because there were no changes suggested since the November 15th meeting. So it's written exactly as it was when the discussion occurred at that point in time. So,
Okay, are there questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just had one quick question on the solicitors part of it. We've had some trouble with panhandlers in the past and that becoming a First Amendment right. Is there any concern that the soliciting part of that would come into play with the solicitor's license?
no, Councilmember Jensen, these are folks that go door to door, so it's a little bit different.
Because it's on private property?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to
Absolutely.
check. Our constituent brought that up, if
Yeah.
anybody's
Okay,
interested.
very good.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
Lisa, can you give us just a brief,
Of the vendor ordinance? Yes, I can try to do that. There's nothing brief about this process, but I'm going to try to do that, Councilmember Ortiz. The vendor component deals with various categories of folks. You have the peddlers and solicitors who Councilmember Jensen mentioned just a moment ago. Those are the individuals that go door to door on private property. Then we have the restrictions or the guidelines. They're not really restrictions, they're just guidelines to play by for the mobile food vendors. That's a different category, so we've set up some guidelines for them. There's also the guidelines for the transient vendors, and I believe those are the folks who would be the most affected by this ordinance. They're the ones who will set up traditionally on public property. And I think the primary concern that we have received for folks during special events was that there would be vendors who would set up right in front of their place of business. And they would sell something similar to what the business owner was selling. So there's a competition in that regard. So we put restrictions or guidelines in place that require those folks to obtain the permission of the business owner directly behind them and to adjacent thereto. So there's not going to be any issues with that. I think I got every category there. I hope I did. So hopefully that helps.
Right. Other discussion? Councilman Hiller?
This also includes those people who do a joint flea market or something like that and
That's the
have
one I
vendors
missed.
within that. And I put that out just to complete
one.
this story, but also to just give you all credit, which I've done before, but there were about 5 different major agendas that had arisen over maybe 2 years, and you all worked hard and put them all together into this document that obviously by no comments for changes even last time. Kudos. Good job.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Councilmember. I knew I forgot one of them.
And I think this is another one where we have to get it into place.
Yeah.
Next year, we might find something that we missed or needs to be changed, but we get it going, and I think these go into effect January 1.
Correct.
Of 2017, so we have to be taking action so we can be implementing them. Your pleasure. Deputy Mayor DeLisa moves to approve. Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? Please vote.
Okay. And then the mayor doesn't vote.
Thank you. I heard it over here. Again, this is a home rule item that the mayor, over which the mayor has veto, therefore he does not have a vote. So you can take my vote off.
So you'll have to.
All right, I've cleared the board. Let's start over. Again, please. Okay. Okay, we have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the ordinance is approved. That completes our action items for this evening. And again, all these 2 last items, these, again, were major efforts for the last 6 months, and the committee and everyone involved, I know particularly downtown Topeka, Noto, affecting them most directly, but there are 2 major issues we're glad to have behind us. Look for possible changes. We go now to our non-action items. The clerk would read.
A is discussion related to the ordinance establishing a service fee levy for 2017 related to the Capital City Downtown Business Improvement District.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll make a few comments, and then I'll ask Vince Fry to come forward. I know he wants to visit with the governing body about this issue, but as the body knows, state law does allow the establishment of business improvement districts in geographical areas. The city has established one of those districts. State law also allows then for the establishment of fees within those districts. So on the one hand, this is a bit of a housekeeping item, but on the other hand, I believe Vince is going to come forward tonight and propose some potential changes for consideration by this body. So with that, I'd ask Vince to come forward, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have submitted for your packet a whole list of activities that took place within the Business Improvement District within this last year. I thought it was interesting to share the history of the district with you. It's been in existence since 1986 when the council, the city, approved this district. It was to provide additional services for the downtown area. And in 1995, the city determined that they didn't have enough staffing or resources to continue these services and asked Downtown Topeka Incorporated to step up and take on that responsibility. So we have contracted to do this as the administrator since 1995. Interesting to note, as we look at the budget that we're submitting to you, the budget in 1987, the very first year of the Business Improvement District, was $175,000. The budget that we have submitted for the upcoming year is approximately $184,000. The budget hasn't really changed. In fact, in 2015, only $155,000 was collected. So obviously, price of a lot of the services and the goods that we're providing has gone up dramatically in those 30 years. And that's one of the reasons why the advisory council, which the mayor appoints and you approve, has made this recommendation. One of those advisory board members is here tonight, Jim Parrish, and would be glad to answer any questions as one of those advisory board members. But realizing that the needs are growing in downtown, why they have recommended a tiered assessment plan. There is a map in your packet that shows the 3 tiers. The closest to Kansas Avenue would be Tier 1, which would be assessed at a higher rate. As you go out from that core to Tier 2, there would be a less of an assessment, and Tier 3 would be even less. So that is a change that the advisory board is recommending. Also, they are recommending that empty buildings are also assessed. When I came before you last year, several of you asked, are you assessing empty buildings? And we did not. But those buildings are still getting the same benefits that those that are occupied. So again, the advisory board is recommending that those empty buildings are assessed at half the price of the ones that are occupied. And it will be on a tiered basis also. The other change is there is a cap. The largest buildings, the largest businesses have been capped at 13,000, and the advisory board is recommending taking that to 15,000. So those are the 3 basic changes that that is being recommended to you by your advisory board.
and I'm going to talk through this because I think for everyone to understand, the council approves this, then the city sends, in a sense, an invoice to the businesses. They remit back to the city. There is no, it's not a tax, and there is no punishment. In other words, they're invoiced and they have to pay, and then the city then pays this to DTI.
Yes, we have an administrative fee, and then we oversee the maintenance and promotion of the district. If we have a bill, we pay it, and then we submit it to the city for reimbursement. We can only spend up to the amount that you have approved annually.
Okay. And you're going to give us a couple examples of what type of bills you submit? What type of things do you pay out of this?
Well, a good example is we purchased new Christmas lights for downtown, which was a significant amount of money. We purchased tulip bulbs for downtown. When we have things that need maintaining, there could be an expense. We have someone downtown 6 days a week picking up trash, cleaning up, and he's also there on Sundays if needed after a big event. And we also pay for barricades, porta potties, insurance for events. So there's a considerable amount of things that we do. We also are in charge of promoting downtown, and so some of the advertising and events that we do we use monies from the Business Improvement District. That's one of our responsibilities, to promote it and bring people downtown. We also maintain an inventory of all the businesses as well as available properties, and we've been able to connect quite a few people that were interested in selling their properties to some of the people that now own those. So it keeps us quite busy. And we maintain an office, which had been the responsibility of the city when it was originally created.
Okay, very good. Now, Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do love the tiered structure and to have empty buildings contribute. I think that's a great step. I noticed in the map here that the state properties are listed as part of this. Do they pay a fee and receive benefits from this?
State, city, county governments do not. Nonprofits do not.
Okay. Do we provide services to the state?
Yes, we do, and of course, the state has their own people that maintain the state grounds, definitely. But some of those state buildings, employees are now housed on the avenue and other places throughout the district, and at this point in time, they are not assessed.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Cohen.
Thanks, Mayor. Just want to clarify, hi, Vince, that the businesses have asked for this. It's nothing that we are imposing on them.
Well, the businesses realize that they need this area to be maintained and promoted. And so, yes, it is something, it's like a merchants association in a mall or a strip center. There's needs, and they pay into that, and that's basically what this is. However, it was created by the city initially, and to provide services that needed to be provided for the downtown area.
Okay, Councilwoman Claire.
How does this work in conjunction with what we just passed a while back about the Kansas Avenue upkeep and cleaning?
Well, that's another situation where the city felt that they did not have the resources or staffing to maintain the new pocket parks and infrastructure that we've provided through the private sector, and asked if we would pick up that responsibility. So we've added more items, more inventory, more areas to take care of. It's a lot more intense because you have statues, you've got fountains. We've been spending a considerable amount of money already on those fountains to maintain those. They are now empty for the winter, but we've had a couple instances where soap suds were put in there and we had to clean them out and other things. But so those are additional items that needed to be maintained, and we stepped up to say that we would take care of that also.
Okay, so just so I understand, we pay you for just the upkeep of the pocket parks? Or is
Well-
it Kansas Avenue? Because then are you getting funds from these businesses on Kansas Avenue?
The Business Improvement District goes from Topeka Boulevard, basically, to Adams, and 2nd Street to approximately 13th Street. So all businesses in there are asked to participate in this Business Improvement District assessment, yes. That's been there for 30 years.
Right.
Since the redevelopment project and all of the private sector enhancements that have been added, it was a contract with the city initially that the city would maintain those in perpetuity. After some discussion, the city decided that that would not be appropriate and asked us to take that on. Again, we have limited resources, so we had put aside money for that purpose, which we were going to give to the city. But when the city decided they could not handle it, we kept that money, and you approved an amount to be paid annually over the first 5 years with renewable 5-year terms.
I guess my question is, are you getting paid twice for a strip?
I don't believe so. In fact, we will not even receive those funds you're talking about until July of 2017. So right now, any of those expenses are on our shoulders.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. To go back to Mr. Cohen's point, as both a property owner and a business owner on Kansas Avenue, I love this. I don't have to worry about shoveling snow when it snows in the morning. I don't have to sweep the leaves off the sidewalk. It's all taken care of. I'm happy to pay to let somebody else come and do that because I would have to do that anyway as a property and business owner, or I'd have to get out there myself and do it. So the fact that I can pay a small amount to the city to have DTI handle that, fabulous. Could not be happier.
Okay, Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, could we amend it to exempt your property?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Vince, thank you. Thank you for all you've done down there. I do have a question. We obviously have some major property owners now, Mr. Foster and Mr. Klossman, that have invested in property in the last year or two down there. Are they on board with this increased fee in Tier 1, which seems like it'd be most of their properties?
They are on board, and we'd like to see it be even more. We were in Des Moines on the intercity visit last month. I think their BID, they collect $2.6 million, and they were on that trip and felt that it was time that this be raised and more funds were provided for downtown.
Thank you.
Councilman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. Vince, we had some friends here that were from Topeka and came back and live in Denver over Thanksgiving. They indicated that, and I sent an email to our city manager, interim city manager, about this to see if we had these collections. They said in a lot of cities they have like $1 when you get a building permit, you pay $1 to downtown beautification. I guess my question to you is, if you could find out if other cities are doing this, and then it actually beautifies the downtown, whether it's for their Main Street or sculptures or whatever. So it's a possibility that we would have some kind of a fee that would be established at building permits in the entire city that would then help to beautify the downtown.
Certainly a possibility. We are a member of the International Downtown Association, and there are BIDs in cities all over the country. Some cities have numerous BIDs, and so we can certainly look and see. Yes.
Okay. Other questions? Discussion. This is a discussion item. Any other comments? Councilman Miller?
Vince, just to piggyback on Councilwoman Clear's question, I know because I sat in the DTI meeting and you explained a little further, this is for routine maintenance that is But it varies how frequently Paul goes out based on whether you're in Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. Could you just briefly describe for everyone?
Well, this is a big area. And
Yeah.
so Paul, who is out there every day from 7 o'clock on, basically works from Monroe to Topeka Boulevard every single day. That's a big area to cover. Sometime during the week, he's able to get into these other areas. So again, that's one of the reasons for the tiered system. The people that are farthest from Kansas Avenue don't get quite as much service because we just can't get there as often. And so that is basically what he is involved in on a daily basis, Monday through Saturday.
I think the point being that everybody's getting service at least once a week.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
And everybody in that whole district, and then you've got daily and as needed in that immediate core that has more activity. But it is, I mean, you see Paul everywhere, and it's going into services for everyone.
Right, and of course, the events that we put on are to bring people downtown for the benefit of the businesses. So that's another thing that we do. And as you saw, we've been honored this year with several awards for our contributions to the arts in this community.
Other discussion?
That also
I'm sorry.
does improve the value of those businesses and buildings. It raises the prospective sale prices and rents that they can get because of the desirability of that location. So there really is a plus for everyone in that district as well. So
Oh, okay,
just wanted
that
to support
completes the discussion. Seeing none other, thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. Go to item B, discussion on the real estate purchase.
B is discussion of real estate purchase agreement for the purchase of real property located at Northwest Topeka Boulevard and Northwest Curtis Streets, Topeka, Kansas.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm going to ask Kelly Ryan, who's our levy engineer, to give an overview of this very specific project and property acquisition, but also Kelly's going to talk to you generally about the status of the levy project. Just by way of background, we didn't have a levy engineer until February. Kelly had originally interviewed with us for the position of a water engineer. He doesn't know I'm going to tell the story, but we thought his background maybe fit better, his background with the Corps fit better with our need for someone to really oversee a $30 million project that we had ongoing. And so it turned out to be very serendipitous that he interviewed for that position because we brought him on as levy engineer, and now here he is this evening to visit with you about the levy project and this parcel acquisition. So,
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Doug said, I'm here to really provide background for your discussion on acquisition of a piece of property needed for the levy project, but I'll also take this opportunity to give you an update of the Corps of Engineers and City of Topeka partnership to bring all the levy units up to current standards. There we go. A project partnership agreement was entered into between the city and the Corps in May of 2015. As Mr. Gerber had mentioned, it was a $30 million total project cost. This project cost is split between federal and city at a 65%, 35% cost share. So we do have a lot of at stake. Included with the agreement was that the city would be required to get all rights of way required, and additionally, those rights of way will count toward the city's cost share of 35%, any money that goes that way. Starting with the Oakland levy unit, the project was aligned by levy units. We're currently working on improvements in the Oakland levy. All the improvements there are under construction at this time. What you see here is a photo of well, a few weeks ago, of the Oakland installation of a stability berm that's there in the foreground with recently seeded grass on there. The work in Oakland includes the stability berm and rock anchors, and those are to basically put some fill up against the levee in order to protect from high flood waters coming underneath the levee and pushing through the soil and coming up on the landward side. The construction at Oakland is about 75% complete. They will be done pretty much with physical construction in January, but they'll have to come back in and do some final seeding next spring during a planting window. That construction cost was $800,000 for that piece. Moving upstream to the South Topeka levee unit, that's what protects downtown and our business area downtown. That is currently under design. The Corps of Engineers is using their in-house engineering staff to do the design work. Design calls for modifications to the existing flood wall that lies between Kansas Avenue and River Road, primarily behind Hill's Pet property there. What the design is calling for is installation of these buttresses against the existing flood wall. This is a similar project that was completed recently in Kansas City, Kansas. So the buttresses will look like what you see there. That new concrete is basically what you see above ground. There will be some work, some caisson work down below ground. In addition to this length of a flood wall, there's also improvements to the levee. There'll be another stability berm on the east side of Topeka Boulevard. That'll be between the levee and the Union Pacific Railroad. The portion that runs kind of, if you were to go west on I-70, you can look down and see the railroad now. Between the railroad and the levee out there, we'll be removing some trees and putting in stability berm out there. So the design is about 65% complete, and the Corps' schedule is to complete the design of all the improvements on the South Topeka unit early summer, this summer.
And you said construction, that would be next summer?
At the end of the design will, and then they'll advertise the construction contract, probably award that in fall of 2017. So it'll be a pretty sizable project, though. Moving across the river to the north side, the North Topeka levee unit, we've divided this project into two phases, basically because of this land acquisition I'm about to tell you about. The first phase was recently awarded. Construction contract was awarded for $3.9 million. So we'll install a series of 30 relief wells between what you see here, the railroad in the distance, and then that's the toe of the levee. In the background is the Cargill facility. The construction for this will take about 1 year, so this should be completed by November of 2017, the construction on phase 1. Phase 2, we peeled off of the project because it's pending this land acquisition. The Corps is requiring that an underseepage berm be installed on the land side of the levee in the area that's shown on this drawing here. Basically, it's bounded on the west by Topeka Boulevard and on the east by Harrison Street. And then that east-west route is Curtis Street there. What's proposed is approximately 6 foot of fill to be placed, and that will taper down to existing ground near Curtis Street. And they will go ahead and reseed that area, so it'll be a nice grass berm that we'll be looking at there. So the area that the berm is going to sit on is primarily public property. but there is a portion that is in private hands. That's where that blue is there. It's currently vacant land, about .46 acres in size. The surrounding area is either owned by the city of Topeka or the Shawnee County right now. So there won't be some issues there, but we do need to acquire this other piece to make the stability berm viable there. The information about that is it's vacant land at that location. The negotiated amount for that project is, or for the acquisition is $85,000. And again, it counts toward the city cost share.
Very good.
So that ends the slideshow. Is there any questions that I can answer for anyone?
Well, I think this is helpful because many people ask, so what are you doing, why are we doing the levees? They think there's going to be rebuilding of levees, but really it's strengthening.
That's right.
Building berms, putting support behind them. Could that be a way to describe it? Or so that there isn't seepage, just making them stronger?
That's right. We're going to make them stronger. There is one area on the Shunga Oakland levee where we're going to raise it just a little bit. There's a little low area, but that is actually related to the levee certification process through FEMA. But other than that, everything is strengthening.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so then we will have a resolution of purchase of this property coming back to us.
Mr. Mayor, yes, it's your next council meeting. This will be before you.
All right. Okay, questions, Councilman Emerson?
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Ryan, for your presentation. A question on this parcel here. So they're simply putting dirt on here, I guess, to apply like static pressure to the ground there, just in that one square rectangle?
That's correct. They've done, the Corps has gone through and done extensive ground geotechnical borings through there and have found that that area was thin in terms of the natural blanket that would have silt and clay on top of the ground. It wasn't very deep. So by adding the stability berm in this location, it'll add to that layer and prevent, or help prevent under seepage.
Deputy Mayor DeLisla.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. My question is related to when you look at the homes that are close to the Oakland area, they are really challenged because we needed to make some repairs to the levee area in order for the flood projections to not be as bad. And that was really impacting the flood insurance for some of these homes. Are some of these repairs going to, in the long run, be beneficial for those homeowners?
Yes, we have, the city has an architect-engineer firm, AMEC, under contract to certify our levees. That came about as a part of FEMA doing a remapping of the city. So if we can get these accredited, that will change the zone on the maps for several of the areas, not all of them, but a lot of the areas will be changed. The improvements in Oakland were fairly minor. They're behind the wastewater treatment plant, and then over to the far east, there's some improvements to a stormwater pump station only. So the residents shouldn't see any differences there, but together with these improvements have been identified by FEMA and the architect-engineer firm of having to be completed. Once they are, they can accredit the levees, and then it goes through a FEMA process to get certified and maps changed.
Okay.
So it's a long process.
It is, but the message for the residents that are having to pay a significant amount of money with regards to their flood insurance is, once we do this and we get this reaccredited, those funds are, you're going to have maybe those funds back in your budget, because I mean, it was extremely challenging for some homeowners that their mortgages were only like $400, and then they way up to $800. Some of them doubled. I mean, it was
Right.
significant.
No, I agree, and that's, I'm really excited to be a part of this project so we can help those folks.
Thank you.
Other questions? And how many miles of levees are there in the city of Topeka? That's just a little...
Oh, there's about 28 miles of levees.
Okay, I think that's an interesting thing to keep in mind, that we're responsible, or in a sense, or we own.
Oh, yes.
We own, they're the property of the city, 28 miles of levees.
Yep, mow them 3 times a year.
Very good. Good facts. Other questions, comments? Okay, that completes that discussion item, and then we will have the real estate purchase agreement on the agenda the next time. C is the next discussion item.
C is discussion to receive input from the governing body members regarding updates to the job description for city manager.
Thank you, and I ask Jackie Russell of Human Resources to address that with us.
Good evening, governing body. This evening, I wanted to come back to you to receive a general consensus. You all have had the opportunity to review the position description for the city manager position, and there won't be any governing body action required following tonight's discussion. Rather, what I would be looking for is consensus for me to incorporate input either into position responsibilities that would be part of the position description provided to the recruitment firm as part of the RFP process, so that we can initiate that and get the formal recruitment underway as soon as possible. Some of the items might be recommendations for discussions during the interview process with potential candidates. They might be performance expectations that would be recommended for the governing body to consider once a candidate is selected. One thing that I wanted to also ask the governing body to keep in mind is that once we do select a recruitment firm and they have an opportunity to review the position description, they will likely make specific recommendations, and you all will also have an interactive dialogue with them throughout that process. So you will have future opportunities as well to provide input to the position description. So I don't know if there's any specific questions that you all have for me before we proceed with letting the RFP and including that document.
Okay, I'd like to just sort of bring this together for us. You know, we had, of course, we had a position description for city manager, for the city manager position. And then we talked about, do we want to make any adjustments or changes to that? And we had the opportunity to submit those, and you incorporated that into a proposal for us. And in talking to several of the council members, you know, how much do we want to get into that discussion here now before we hire a consulting firm who meets with us? And in my conversations with other city managers before about this process, several of them suggested a value of having a national firm is that they know position descriptions, what new trends are, what ideas are nationally, and can help us if we want to update ours. So now it's almost like maybe we go back and just use what we had to go out for the RFP, and then look to them to meet with us and work with us in making changes to the position description. Is that, Deputy Mayor DeLisa?
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. I absolutely, not only do I agree with you, but I think that just as you keep on looking at the things that were suggested, they were more criteria for performance evaluation rather than things that should be in a position description. And great credit to our staff. We have a pretty solid job description, I would say. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but as the theme that we kept on seeing over and over in the comments were more comments that were pertaining to evaluating the performance of our city manager once they're here and the expectations that we would have for that individual. So from my perspective, I support what you just said and absolutely support us using what we currently have.
Yeah, Councilwoman Claire.
When I first started looking at this, I read 30 other. city manager job descriptions, and that's where I kind of pulled what I had seen over and over and over again and suggested it go into ours. I don't think there's a reason to just throw this away.
No.
I think we use this, they change it if they see it changed, and I would just leave this and go from there. That's my suggestion.
Okay. Councilman Hiller.
I agree. If I understood correctly, I mean, we had some suggestions, some of which might be good to incorporate, others might be better for conversation or evaluation. For me, I want us to get this process moving, for one thing, and so because the original was good, maybe it would be tweaked, but if we could use the original to get things going, certainly submit to that entity once we contract the comments that came in so that we don't have to do that again. Yeah. I think if I understood it correctly, I think that's great. I would want the comments to come forward at the appropriate time as well. And again, first and foremost, my understanding, I chatted with Jackie briefly, is that staff has already been getting the distribution list together and the RFP. We need to get this going, so I'm eager to see that happen.
Councilman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. One of my suggestions had to do with being new on the council and feeling like I was not treated as other council members, and so part of that may be the evaluation process, but I really believe if we give the suggestions, and I want to move this forward too, that if we give the suggestions to them, that when we look at hiring a new city manager and we have all of our concerns out there, that we'll get the best that we can. Thank you.
That's great. Well, is that, Councilman Harmon?
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Jackie, is this then a working document that will be given to the consultant, or search consultant, or whatever, and there'll be further work and tweaking of this? Is that your
I would expect there would be further work and tweaking, because it would be my recommendation that we would want their input, as they would be the firm that would be leading that recruitment before we would start that formal process. I would recommend that they have that opportunity to have that dialogue and interact with you all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Is that, so we have a consensus that we're going to use the former position description to get to the RFP, to get it out as quickly as possible, and then but keep all of these suggestions that came in, and they will be a part of this discussion when we have that discussion with the firm that is selected. Is that in the agreement? Councilman Jensen.
I believe so. I just have one quick question. When we select a firm, would we expect them to come and speak to us, like in person, or would
You
they?
will have direct interaction with the firm.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's perfect then.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Typically, they interview each council person individually, get their views, and all of that.
Good enough.
That's almost their first task. Councilman Hiller.
One more thing. I was looking at this and appreciated Councilwoman De Lisla's run at kind of getting a calendar together back when we first started. Just to throw it out for right now, looking at the delays that we've had simply because we only had 2 or 3 meetings a month to get to this point, I would suggest that we up front right now start. When I looked at the timeline of getting the RFP out and then being able to bring something back to us, hopefully in early January, to select a firm, then their need to get going and come visit with us and then finalize these various steps. You can see it kind of going in 30-day increments, but I think we should all be expecting to have perhaps a Tuesday night meeting at the end of the month to be able to work on this. Unless we want to add and have the meetings that we have longer than they are already, realistically, so that we can move this process. When we did the hiring before, we had special meetings. We didn't try and include them in the council meetings. So as we calendar this out, I just wanted people to be thinking about it. I think it's important. Tuesday nights are as good for me as some other day of the week, but for just us to be expecting that we'd be doing this.
Okay, good suggestion, take into consideration. Any other comments, discussion on the item? Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, normally we have a discussion, and then the next week we do an action, but this does not need an action item,
No,
correct?
it's not. We took action to give authority to go forward already, and now we're just waiting to put this into the package.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that completes the discussion item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie. Next, item D.
D is discussion concerning compensation for the mayor and council members.
And this was a ordinance introduced by Councilmember Schwartz. So, Councilmember, if you'd like to introduce for us, please.
I'll introduce it, and I'll also give a little bit of a background. This was something that we discussed during the budget, and I think it was recommended that we put an amount in the budget so that it would cover it if we did pass a resolution that would contain pay raises. My hopes is that we have discussion tonight and we figure out, what direction we want to go. We have had a recommendation. I had not really planned that I would be getting any of this increase because I think the public pretty much now knows I'm not running again. So I would fall on the sword and be the person to introduce the resolution. I really believe that with the passage of what the county did, which they passed their pay raises, and it didn't hurt anybody in reelection, that we need to really consider this. And so I know this is discussion only tonight, but I would, and my husband advised me, he's at the KU game, so he can't be, he said, don't talk very long. So I'm not going to talk very long, but I really do think we need to be discussing this. We haven't done what we were supposed to do. The governing body has not done what they were supposed to do, which was to review the salaries every 4 years. And so we're 12 years behind, which I think we need to discuss that. And I don't have any problem with this not going into effect until 2018. I know we have a suggestion of that anybody on the council now would not get an increase. I don't have a problem with that. I just feel that we need to discuss this. My intent on doubling was to put us with Wyandotte, or with Kansas City, Kansas. Wichita is twice this amount, and I think when you're talking in Kansas about the three major cities, you're talking Kansas City, Wichita, and Topeka. And so as the capital city, I just felt like this is something we needed to look at. So.
Thank you. Councilwoman Claire.
I'll start. I don't understand, I saw the new proposal about it not being in effect till later. I don't understand that because the job's not going to change. I mean, it's the people, yes, but what we do for that amount is, the job's not going to change. So if you think about it, we are potentially responsible and can have 14,000 phone calls. We are responsible for that many people in your district. That's a lot of people. And the number one duty of being on the council is to come to the council meetings and vote as a team. I would say we all go above the expectation of coming to a council meeting and voting. We all study, we go on trips, we learn, we grow in the position. As a team, I think we're very successful. I think these are all valid reasons why people get raises, besides the fact it's been 12 years. I had staff look and see exactly what it cost a taxpayer for our services, and they came up with about $1.38 annually on a $100,000 home. So you're paying $1.38 to have someone be your voice, to guide you, to assist you, and work with you if you need assistance. I think that's pretty good bang for your bucks. So I don't see why we would put this off because we all do the job now. I understand politically, it hasn't been done. I'm not one that always stays with what has always been done. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jensen?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll add some interesting numbers that I worked with Jackie to get. The average council person with a family of 4 will make $835.60 a year. That's because the city health insurance costs $9,100 or so. That's if you don't smoke. If you're not part of the wellness program, you're going to pay $11,562 for health insurance for a family of 4. That's tough for someone to take a job and do. Now, granted, I realize it's not a full-time job. It's very difficult to have a full-time job and do this one. There's a lot of work that you guys, that the general public doesn't see outside of the meetings we have. There's a ton of research, a ton of phone calls. So it's a lot more than 3 meetings a month. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate my point about health insurance, following up on Councilman Jensen's comments. We had self-funded our own health insurance plan, our own health savings account until we got elected. And now that insurance is available at the workplace, I could no longer go out and purchase my own health insurance on the exchange. And so if we brought in my children, like we had on our plan, and my wife, it would be more than what we make, just the health insurance requirement. If for some reason this could be delayed until after President Trump takes office and removes the requirement that we have to have health insurance, I would be happy to stay where we are. But right now, we're not getting ahead at all. As a matter of fact, it would be, we're not getting it. Thank you.
Councilman Hiller.
Just for the conversation, I think people know that I've had mixed feelings about it personally. I can leave it, but I also have been approached pretty steadily since others raised the issue here in the council. And I think that there have been emails that all of us got that said, why do you guys think you should get any more money? But in terms of people approaching me, and there have been many, to the person they've said, you should vote for that raise, you all deserve it, you work very hard. And that has been interesting to me, and those were not solicited comments, those were people that just came up to me and said they thought that was the right thing for us to do.
Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple thoughts. First, I want to thank Councilwoman Schwartz for broaching this subject during our budget deliberations. It's always been deemed a topic that no one wanted to touch for the political ramifications, and I appreciate the leadership that Councilwoman Schwartz displayed in bringing it up for discussion and deliberation by the governing body. I also want to show my appreciation to Councilwoman Clear for what she said. This is a lot of work. Sylvia and I have been on this council for 12 years, and I think everyone who's sat around this table has worked very diligently, very conscientiously in fulfilling the responsibilities of the office. And there is value to what we do. There are certain out-of-pocket costs that we incur by virtue of holding this office. There are events we attend. There's registration fees we pay. Frankly, our salary, our compensation should be increased. I think we're under the compensation schedule that was adopted. I think back in 2004. And it is time to consider it, and I think it's time for a raise. I had legal circulate an amendment, though. The purpose of the amendment would be to, if this is voted in, the increases would be delayed until our successors take office. In other words, we could not benefit personally from this increase. It's always bothered me. In fact, it's more than bothered me. It's always irritated me greatly when public officials at any level of government, local, state, or federal, vote to increase their compensation. It's a direct conflict of interest. It may not be a legal conflict of interest, but it looks like a conflict of interest, it talks like a conflict of interest, and it walks like a conflict of interest. People, the citizens, have to have confidence in the integrity of their elected officials. And when those elected officials vote themselves a pecuniary benefit that is not shared by everyone else, that confidence is shattered. So the amendment that I will offer next week simply says that the salaries of the mayor and council members, the salaries of the individual holding office as mayor and council member on September 1, 2016 shall be in the following amounts and shall not be increased as long as each serves in either a mayoral or council member position. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it sends the right message not only to our citizens but to elected officials throughout the country that they cannot put their own personal self-interest above the responsibilities to their constituents. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. We have a person signed to speak on this issue. We'll have, all right, then we'll come back and have more discussion. Teresa Miller.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to voice some of the things I voiced before. First of all, I do agree that you haven't had a raise since 2005, and that you're deserving of the raise, especially our mayor. Our mayor is out there, full force, every day, representing this city. There's not a place you can't go to see his smiling little face. So, yes, I think he deserves a raise. I do think you all deserve some type of raise, not the 100% that you guys are asking for. It's hard for me to want to give a lot of people raises when I live on Social Security. I'm looking forward to that $4 a month that I'm going to get when a utility just got a raise and it's going to take more than that $4 away from me. So I'm so excited. Woohoo. So, saying with that, it's kind of hard because I'm a Neighborhood Improvement Association president also. I go to meetings. I go to a lot of meetings. I have to figure that gas money in so I can get to those meetings because I struggle paying my bills every day. I don't complain. So I go to these meetings. I get involved in anything I can in everybody's area, not just my NIA, because it makes the whole city run when you work together. So here's the deal. I called Lawrence today, and I talked to their mayor. They, at one time, were going to give themselves a raise also. Mind you, he makes $10,000. That's all that man makes, is $10,000 as being a mayor. City council makes $9,000 a year. That's what they receive. We're always comparing ourselves to other cities. There's one you can compare yourself to. So be thankful that you get what you have already, because they're not getting it, and they don't see any raise in the near future. So with that said, when you're looking at these raises, please take consideration. We understand you go to meetings. We understand that you do this, but we see it, and it's said, I don't like saying this, as a part-time job, because most of you have full-time jobs. But if you want to be paid as a full-time employee, then we expect when we call you, you answer that phone. When we need you, we want you there. And I can't see some of you doing that because you have full-time jobs. So take that also in consideration, because if you want to treat it as a full-time job and be paid as a full-time job, then it needs to be a full-time job. Other than that, like I say, I'm not against your raises. I'm against how much you are asking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Now, we'll return to the discussion. I think Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. I had a question for Councilman Herman. And that would be why you would, I think I'm following your logic about people not voting themselves a raise, but whether or not I agree, but why would somebody who continues to serve in your proposal never, ever get a raise? That's how I read it anyway.
You're reading it correctly, because you're still benefiting from a vote you cast. I don't care how many consecutive terms you serve, you're still benefiting from a vote you cast. Having an intervening election does not remove the taint, in my opinion. So.
And you would do that versus just let people personally choose to opt out, which they could?
Opt out of what?
Okay.
Opt out of accepting the raise.
People can do what they want to do.
Okay.
I have Councilwoman Clear and then Emerson and Clear.
I'd be concerned, Richard, I understand what you're saying. I'd be concerned. I think, like Councilwoman Hiller, I've been emailed and had calls that said, I get it now. Go ahead, you do deserve that. And I'd be really surprised if I shattered confidences just because I asked for more money. Because I think most people see that it is due. And whether we benefit or not, to me, that's not the point. It was due years ago. Y'all should have had it years ago. I want people to understand we don't control Social Security. We don't have the power to give more money to Social Security or teachers. I've heard give your raise. We can't. We don't have that within our power. I think, as Ms. Miller said, she expects us to answer the phone and all, but it's still a part-time job. I mean, it's still $20,000 for a part-time job. It would not be a full-time job. And I view this as, I remember in junior high, I went out for, some office. I can't remember, secretary or something. And I thought it was so wrong for someone to vote for themselves. So I didn't. And I lost by one day. So I'll be darned. This kind of reminds me of that. That's all.
Okay, Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I've expressed to a couple of you, I've been really conflicted about this because, and I think you guys agree with this, all right? Yeah, I'm sure you guys agree with this, that it's an honor to serve. I don't feel it's a burden on me personally. And I know not everyone's in the same situation I am, so I've been blessed in some ways, and I appreciate that. However, I just wonder how much this job has changed since they first enacted the $10,000 salary that we're all. And I thought, I kind of wanted to keep an open mind, so I just ran a spreadsheet, anybody wants this, I'll pass it to you, but basically if you do the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for Kansas City adjustment every year and compound it, so every year you increase it by, 2005 was 2.6%, so at the end of that year it'd be 10,260. If you follow that logic all the way through, actually last year was a 0.7% decrease. Right now, doing the same job that our predecessors did, we would be getting $12,358.48 is the modern equivalent, or the 2016 equivalent of the 10,000 back in 2004. And I guess at the end of the day, I don't think I'm doing anything different than the people who, signed up for the 10,000. So I'm deeply conflicted about this. I will not support an increase. I do like Mr. Cohen's point about waiting and seeing if there is a change in the law. Maybe this is something we don't need for the insurance reasons. And I know a couple of you are in that situation where you're getting penalized insurance-wise. For me, this is the first time in 28 years I've had anybody buy health insurance. I send out checks every month to Blue Cross Blue Shield for my employees. I've never had someone else, so that was a shock to me to have someone else doing it. So for me, I can't support it, and frankly, having only been here 6 months, you can't do that. Can't come in a job and then 6 months in ask for an increase. I mean, that's just, can't do that. So for both those reasons, I can't be in support, but I do very much respect what everybody does here and what everybody brings to the table. You are very honorable and great people to work with.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. To respond to a couple of comments from Mr. Emerson, what has changed since 2004 is cost. You're correct, the job hasn't changed. I still treat this as a full-time job, answer my phone whenever I'm called 24 hours a day, respond to whatever crisis there is. But the costs of doing so have skyrocketed. I mean, just look at our health insurance costs alone. That's a substantial difference. So I do agree with your comments in that the job hasn't changed, but the cost in accomplishing the same thing has changed drastically. Mr. Harmon, I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but if I follow that logic, if I vote for any change in the city of Topeka, I would fall into a very similar classification in that as a citizen of this community, I benefit from the decisions that we make here. We voted to increase the street sweeping. Now the street in front of my house is clean on a more regular basis. So I benefit from that. Now financially my house is worth more. So I understand what you're trying to accomplish here. However, I struggle with where that boundary ends. I mean, indeed, I don't necessarily directly get compensation from some of the other votes that we make, but at the same time, I do benefit from it financially. The work we've done in downtown has financially benefited the investments I've made. So I guess I don't understand where you find the boundary in this with that.
No. Councilman Harmon.
Because it's not a direct benefit shared by other constituents. That's your answer. Yeah, we all vote for street projects that we benefit from, but that benefit is to the entire city. But a pay increase benefits 10 people and 10 people only.
If I could respond to that?
That's the difference, Brendan.
So in increasing the salary in all jobs, generally that increases the caliber of the people you have. Better caliber people on the council often will result in better decision-making process for the city and will indeed benefit the entire community. It may take a little longer, but indeed it will benefit the entire community.
I think we have several more comments, and then I don't know how much more we're going to be convincing one another to do something differently if we've all made up our minds. So closing comments, perhaps. Councilman Schwartz.
Thank you. I didn't turn my mic off. If we don't do anything, I hope we at least adopt lines 20 through 25. And that way, and when I was in the legislature, this is one of the things that I think we did. I can't remember for sure because there was a lot that was done. But you tie your salary to the CPI.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to vote on a raise. So if we kept the lines 20 through 25, that we tie the salary to the CPI, then it's fair. It's fair to everybody. I'm not sure I agree that you shouldn't, I'm not going to run again. So I don't have a worry about the salary piece. But I don't know that it's fair that if Tony runs and he's been in here since September 1st, he can't ever get a raise, except maybe whatever's tied, if we pass the part that's tied to the CPI. So the other thing is, my husband, when I ran for office and I got elected and I got 75% of the vote, he said, "Oh, wow, this is really great." He said, "I think you ought to run for mayor in 4 years." It took less than 6 months for him to say, "You're not running for mayor." He knew how much work it is to be mayor. He knows how much work it is to be on the council. And I just feel like if we had more compensation, if a council member had more compensation, you could go to something almost every day on your calendar. When I had my heart surgery, I cut back on everything. I'm not doing that again. So I really believe with the caliber of people we have great people that run and that do serve. But if we did something that would increase the compensation, you're not going to always have a majority of one-termers up here, because that's what we always have in Topeka, is you look around and it's one-termers. Thank you.
With a couple exceptions.
With a company accepted.
All right. Well, yeah, well, we got the two quarters over here. Okay, discussion? Yeah, Mr. Emerson.
And Mr. Jensen, I appreciate your comments. I just wanted to point out that I was taking the CPI, cost of living, into account. It's about a 23% increase in the cost of living since 2004. This is based on, I mean, you can look at the data from the price index from U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics.
I'd be interested to see if our health insurance matched that, because I don't believe it has.
Yeah, I don't know about health insurance.
That's a big driver.
Okay, ending discussion on that item. Fine, we'll look forward to next week. That concludes the non-action items. We proceed then to the announcements. The interim city manager. I'm sorry, first we have the preliminary agenda for next week. If the clerk would read that.
On the December 13th agenda, we will have a presentation on the snow and ice plan removal. On the consent agenda, we'll have a board appointment to the Board of Plumbing Examiners and a workers' comp claim for Lee Trout. For action items, we'll have a labor agreement for WPC, a resolution declaring the City of Topeka corporate boundaries, an ordinance relating to 2016 budget amendments. We'll have an ordinance relating to the 2017 downtown business improvement fee structure, ordinance relating to mayor and council members' compensation, and then a real estate purchase agreement for Northwest Topeka Boulevard and Northwest Curtis Street. For non-action items, discussions include Policy and Finance Committee report update regarding governing body rules, record fees, and council training. We have a discussion regarding project budget amendments for 2016 and 2017, and then we'll have a discussion on reserve transfer funds.
Okay, that'd be another full agenda. Mr. Interim City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, you heard that next week we'll have an update on the snow and ice plan. Potential to put that plan into action tomorrow. Seems a little bit unlikely, but there is that potential. Just wanted to let the body know that we are prepared, and we're pre-treating roads and bridges this evening, probably as we speak. Crews are out doing that. At the Kansas Association of City Managers Conference last week, Mr. Kaufman and I attended, and the City of Topeka was honored with 2 awards. First off was the Innovation Award related to the Tweelongs, and of course credit for that goes to our media relations person, Allie Van Dyke, so we were recognized for that. And then we also received the City Public Improvement Award for our Kansas Avenue project. So it was nice to see Topeka honored at that conference, honored by our peers. So that always feels nice when your peers do that. We have a neat event coming up on December 15th that we're calling Be the Bridge. We finished paying off the bonds for the Topeka Boulevard Bridge on that day. And so to honor that, we're doing some events associated with that. We'll have a noon in Noto. We'll have a brief press conference with the mayor and I believe. We have a big check that we're presenting to U.S. Bank. And then there's going to be a walk from Noto across the bridge and back, 2.4 miles, in case you're wanting to get your steps in that day.
Depending on the level of the blizzard.
Yes.
Okay, just
depending on the level.
Partly cloudy, 29 degrees.
That's right.
Boom.
Congratulations to a couple of our employees who recently completed the KU CPM program, Certified Public Manager Program, including employee at the back of the room, Lieutenant Stewart is a graduate of that. So congratulations to her, as well as Corey Wright, and then Lieutenant Jana Harden from the PD as well. And continuing the employee theme, we have a number of longtime employees retiring in the next week or two, and we do have some receptions to honor those employees. Wednesday the 14th, and I'll send this to you in email form so you don't have to remember this, but for everyone else's information, Wednesday the 14th, we have at the Ramada Inn downtown, 2 to 3:30 for fire employees retiring. Thursday the 15th, from 1 to 3 at Water Distribution, we have a 29-year employee retiring. And then on Friday the 16th, we have 2, one at the PD for some longtime employees and Chief Brown. And then also from 1 to 3 at the Holiday Building for Rosanna Haugen, who's, as you know, a longtime employee in neighborhood relations.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes my remarks.
I have 2 brief announcements. First, yesterday was birthday, council members. Yesterday was the birthday of Topeka. December 5, 1854, a mere 162 years ago, and I bet their council members were paid. We'll run a check on that.
Let's go back to that one.
What they got. 1854. It was founded down on the riverbanks. And the second is, I would like to invite everyone, if you haven't, to, at night, drive in front of City Hall. I want to congratulate all the people involved. Someone's been working at this for a number of years, and this year it came together. It's beautiful, it's lit, and our facilities management people put in new sconces and lights on the 6 poles up the steps. Beautiful. So after the meeting or sometime, drive in front of City Hall and admire that. Go to Councilwoman Hiller for your announcements. Councilwoman Claire.
Can you say snow day? I want to remind interim city manager that I asked about the safety of the city hall, that Mr. Colson had said you would get to me in November, so I'm just reminding you that I'm still waiting on that. There was a great no-tow announcement for some new land acquisition, and that was fun. Friday on the 9th, 9 to 5, Ronald McDonald House has their homemade cookies and candies that you can go buy. Check out Winter Wonderland at Lake Shawnee to benefit TARC and TBC. My Church the Light Show is on at 6, 7, 8, and 9 o'clock. From December 9th to 11th is when they perform it, and then after that it's automated. So check that out.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I kind of like the new voting machines. I just wanted to know, why did we have to have 2 of our staff members? If they're so great, why do we have to have 2 staff members down there?
Because it's more efficient.
It's more efficient. Well, thank you for being twice as efficient. Next, I'm going to ask Brendan from the zoo to come up for me. I just want him to talk about a couple things. The first thing is Santa with Claus was this weekend. Great event. I took my grandsons, and I actually seen Allie there going in, talking to Santa. I don't know if she had her list or not, but the photos were great. The kids loved it, and I think you extending it to a second day was awesome. We didn't have to wait in a long line, kicking line, so I think what you're doing, thinking outside the box, is awesome, and I did jump in a picture with Santa, and he got my list. The next thing I wanted to do is I want you to see me, and I want to challenge all of my colleagues that they're doing something new this year at the zoo, and I want Brendan to talk about it a little bit, and I'm going to give you a check. If you buy a membership, we have a donor, and I'll let you go ahead.
Well, sure. Thank you, Councilmember Ortiz. It's a new program this year. It's technically a Friends of the Zoo program. But the fact of the matter is not everyone has access to the Topeka Zoo. We charge an admission. And for some in our community, that makes it challenging to get through our gates. So this year, Friends of the Zoo has a sponsor or an anonymous donor that is willing to match up to 500 family memberships that Friends of the Zoo can sell. And together, hopefully, that 500 turns into 1,000. Those memberships will be given out to families in need in our community so that they can have access to the zoo for an entire year. And it's an amazing gesture. It's an amazing program, and we're really hoping that it will be successful. There will be more about it after the first of the year as we kind of talk about how families will be income verified and the process for actually getting those memberships into people's hands. But Councilmember Ortiz, thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. And I'm going to write my check, and I'm going to give mine so I can get a donor out there, and I challenge all my colleagues, even though we haven't had a raise, for the last 12 years, me and Richard get all this mail that says, can you write a check here and write a check there and write a check here? But this is near and dear to my heart because of the challenges of the low to moderate income kids that would be able to go to the zoo and go to all the events. And so I challenge you to adopt, and we have a donor. We can't ask for nothing better than that. So I'll take my little 50 cents a day, and I'll write my check, and I'll give it to Brendan before he leaves. But I did want to bring that out. I thought that was excellent, excellent. I'd also like to recognize our firefighters who, if you guys didn't see it, and I will send on the blurb, they adopted Hope for the Project Warmth, which is foster kids that come into foster care, and they gave $2,000 to that project, to the quilters, and they will have quilts made, so every kid that enters foster care will get a quilt when they come in to take with them and that love. And I'd like to thank them for that, and they have another event on the 16th which I will mention next week. But again, I challenge you to write that check to Mr. Brendan, who's thinking outside the box, and I think it's a great organization. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gerber, I don't know, you sent us these things about things that have been happening. Can you disclose that outside of sending it to us in your weekly reports? I mean, good news things?
Councilman Emerson, yes. A slightly different version of that is posted on our website.
Okay. Well,
our manager's report.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Every week, Mr. Gerber sends each of us a weekly report. I think hopefully it's the same report to all of us, but yeah, not each of us.
Yeah, right.
One report to all of us.
A separate report.
Yeah, a separate report. But one of the things, property maintenance, I think there's two sides of property maintenance. One is people saying that not enough is being done to crack down on these property owners, and the other part is property owners that can't afford to maintain or fix up their houses. So it was very, I loved getting this a couple weeks ago, and I'll just read it. I'm not going to say where the person lives or anything because I don't want to embarrass them, but it said, property maintenance received a thank you card this week from the owner of a house. We'd cited her for needing to paint her house. She contacted us telling us she didn't have the means to do it. We connected her with community engagement, who found a group of volunteers to help paint her house. And things like that, I think, go on probably multiple times a week, but I think generally people don't see that, so I guess I wanted to point that out. And great job, Sasha and Mr. Gerber. I also just wanted, we had a small incident today over on a project over in my district, and I just wanted to compliment Jeff Hunt, our assistant city engineer, went over there immediately, and he called me. Unfortunately, we had a very problematic constituent who lives over there on this which is the mayor's secretary. So,
No, we cannot make direct comments.
may or may not have
We have
been,
to speak in general.
Okay, it may or may not have been, but
To the mayor.
I did, in full disclosure, Mr. Hunt did not know who was involved, but I just really appreciate that engineering, when something comes up, those guys are quick to run out there and get the problem fixed, even if it's a problem constituent.
Okay, thank you. I think some of that was joking.
Yes, that was all joking about the problem.
Okay. Deputy Mayor DeLisa.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. I just want to start by saying how proud I am of the TPD and the fire department. I had the opportunity to be over at Festival of Trees, and they had both of the trees being shown at the same time. They raised a ton of money for the charity at SLI. I can tell you that the Mars group is very happy to have the TPD tree. They finally were able to light it up today. Beautiful. It also won the Creative Genius.
Creative Genius.
However, I'll say this much. TFD brought in more money than TPD, so I'm not trying to start anything. But I'm just saying, we have to do something. No, just kidding. No, I'm saying this because I think it was great that both departments decided to step up. Not only did they step up there, but I think that one of the council members made the mention about the blankets, but the TPD also did adoptions for KVC. I had mentioned that, and the KVC list was eliminated. Like a week or two after the announcement was made. So I want to say thank you to the community that stepped up and adopted those kiddos and decided to go ahead and make sure that they were able to have Christmas. I've had a very interesting last week meeting. It was kind of funny. People are saying how we have full-time jobs and how we balance. I tell you, last week, I think that I worked 50-50 council and in my day job in between my travels. But one of the things that I was very encouraged by, and I just want to give yet another shout out to the fire department. I had a really crucial conversation with the team, and it was really humbling for me to sit down across from 3 individuals that said, we know exactly where we're at. We know that we have challenges, but we are really eager to work on those challenges and move this city forward. Our heart is for the city. And I hear the same thing from the TPD on a regular basis. We have heroes amongst us. And I just want to make sure that they hear that we hear you. We are here for you. Your council is here for you. And I just want to make sure that you guys know that we're all here. And you can call all of us. And we're looking forward to continuing conversations. We have your back.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Ortiz, the membership for the zoo, how much is that?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, you may respond if it's brief.
$50.
it's $50, and I know
Family.
$50 for
Family membership.
A family membership.
family membership.
So we donate one and somebody matches it?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to
2 for
ask
1.
my wife because I'm not allowed to make decisions anymore. However, I think that's a great cause, and provided she approves, I will be happy to make a donation for a membership.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jensen, you are the head of the household. Tell your wife that she broke. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If only that were true.
Okay.
Outside of that, I trudged up the ladder to the stratosphere last week and hung lights on my house to try and make the neighborhood much more merry. And it occurred to me as I'm crawling around my roof just how dangerous that is. So as you're putting Christmas lights up, please be careful. The snow and ice is coming, which makes those roofs much more slippery. So everybody watch out. I mean, it is pretty to have lights in your house. I don't want to discourage anybody from doing that, but just take some extra caution. This is supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, and it's very difficult if you have casts and things from falling off of roofs. So everybody have a great week. Thank you very much. Buy a zoo membership.
Councilwoman Schwartz.
I accept your challenge, and I've already done it. You can do it online. I did it the other day. So, and I think it's SPOTS. It's the Friends of the Topeka Zoo. This weekend, I would be in trouble if I didn't mention this. This weekend, December 10th, is Red Stocking Breakfast. I'm on the board of the Kansas Children's Service League. So they are going to, the honorary chair is Zach Aarons with Gap Journal. Curtis Sneathen is going to be there with the magical entertainment. Santa Claus is there all morning. It's from 7:30 to 10:30. Bo the Clown's going to be there. Some young elves will be there passing out candy canes, and they'll have celebrity servers. So the tickets are $15 online. Just go to www.kcsl.org and get those. Also, the gem of this week is our local merchants. Everything I have on was made locally, and bought locally, so it's the holiday season,
Right.
so please buy local. Thanks.
Thank you. Good notes. Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say happy birthday to my daughter, Hannah, 12 on Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Herman. That completes our announcements. Prior to public comment, I suggest we take a break, about 10 minutes or so, a quick break, and then we will proceed with public comment.